The morning sun pushed through the thin curtains of Oakwood Children's Home, waking Maylene earlier than usual. She lay still on her narrow bed, counting the cracks in the ceiling, a habit that had stuck with her since arriving at the orphanage 3 years ago. The sound of hurried footsteps and urgent whispers in the hallway told her today wasn't like other days. "He's coming at noon," she heard Ms. Patel, one of the caretakers, say to someone. Everything must be perfect. Maylene knew exactly who he was without asking. Mr. Blackwood. The man whose name made the staff stand straighter and speak softer. The man whose yearly visits brought a mix of hope and fear to every child at Oakwood. Rolling out of bed, she slipped on her least worn clothes, a blue sweater and gray pants that were a bit too short now. She didn't join the rush of children heading to breakfast. Instead, she quietly made her way to the small room at the end of the east hallway. The music room wasn't much, just an old, upright piano with yellowed keys, a few chairs with wobbly legs and shelves of donated sheet music with curling edges. But to Maylene, it was the closest thing to home. She sat on the bench and lifted the piano lid, running her fingers over the keys without pressing them. This piano had been her friend, her comfort, her connection to the past. Before the accident that took her parents, her mother had taught her to play on their small keyboard at home. "Music speaks when words fail," her mother used to say. The door creaked open behind her. "I thought I'd find you here," said Ms. Zhao, the oldest caretaker at Oakwood. Her lined face held a gentle smile, but her eyes showed worry. "You know Mr. Blackwood is visiting today?" Maylene nodded, finally pressing a key so softly that it barely made a sound. Ms. Zhao sat in one of the wobbly chairs. "This year is different. I overheard the director talking. Mr. Blackwood might be looking to adopt." Maylene's fingers paused over the keys. "Adopt?" "Yes, not just give a scholarship like usual." Ms. Zhao leaned forward. "He's never shown interest in actually taking a child home before. This could be your chance, Maylene. You're 12 now. The older you get, the harder it becomes." Maylene knew this truth all too well. Most people wanted babies or very young children. At 12, her chances grew slimmer with each passing month. "I don't care," she said, though her voice wavered. "I don't want to be picked by someone who only visits once a year and looks at us like we're things to be inspected." Ms. Zhao sighed. "Mr. Blackwood is a very important man, very rich. He could give a child opportunities most people only dream about. Just be on your best behavior today, please. Wear the nice dress we got for special days. And maybe," she glanced at the piano, "maybe stay away from here until after the visit." Maylene frowned. "Why?" "Mr. Blackwood is very particular. He likes things orderly and quiet. Last year when little Raj was playing that toy drum during the visit," Ms. Zhao shook her head. "Just trust me. Be seen, not heard. Answer questions politely if he speaks to you. That's the best approach." After Ms. Zhao left, Maylene remained at the piano. She should join the others for breakfast. She should put on the itchy blue dress with the collar that felt too tight. She should line up with the other children and smile and nod and be the perfect, quiet orphan that someone might want to take home. Instead, her fingers found the keys and began to play. The tune started soft and uncertain, like a question being asked. It was a melody her mother had taught her, but over the years Maylene had changed it, adding pieces of herself to the music. Sadness when she remembered her parents, hope when she dreamed of a different life, anger when the other kids teased her for being too quiet, too different. She lost track of time as she played, the world outside the music room fading away. Across the orphanage, chaos reigned. Staff members rushed to make beds and sweep floors. Children were scrubbed until their cheeks shone pink, hair combed neatly, wearing their best clothes, most of them hand-me-downs but carefully ironed for the occasion. At precisely noon, a sleek black car pulled up outside Oakwood Children's Home. The director, Mrs. Chen, stood at the entrance, back straight, smile fixed firmly in place as Alexander Blackwood stepped out of the car. He was tall, with sharp features and even sharper eyes that seemed to notice every flaw, every imperfection. His suit probably cost more than the orphanage spent on food in a month. Behind him came 3 people, an assistant clutching a tablet, a photographer with an expensive camera, and a woman holding a clipboard who introduced herself as Mr. Blackwood's personal assistant. "Welcome to Oakwood, Mr. Blackwood," Mrs. Chen said, her voice higher than usual. "We're honored by your visit, as always. The children have been looking forward to meeting you." Alexander Blackwood didn't smile. "Let's make this efficient. I have a board meeting at 4. As they walked through the main hallway, the photographer took pictures while the assistant made notes on her tablet. The children had been gathered in the common room, standing in a neat line like little soldiers. They'd been practicing all morning. Smile, but not too widely. Speak when spoken to. Show gratitude for Mr. Blackwood's generosity. Mr. Blackwood moved down the line slowly, occasionally asking a child their name or age. Some of the smaller children squirmed under his gaze. A few of the older ones stood taller, hoping to catch his attention. "And what do you enjoy studying?" he asked a boy near the end of the line. "Math, sir," the boy answered, his voice barely above a whisper. Mr. Blackwood nodded without showing if this answer pleased him or not. "And you?" he asked the next child. "Science, sir, especially chemistry." This continued as he moved down the line, the responses becoming rehearsed as children heard what the others said and adjusted their own answers to what they thought might impress him. Then, barely audible at first, came the sound of piano music drifting down the hallway. Mr. Blackwood paused mid-question. "What's that?" Mrs. Chen's smile faltered. "Oh, one of our children must be in the music room. I'll have someone bring her right away." "No," Mr. Blackwood said, raising a hand to stop her. "Continue the introductions. I'll be back." Before Mrs. Chen could protest, he turned and followed the sound, his assistants hurrying after him. The music grew louder as he approached the east hallway. It wasn't the simple, stumbling notes of a child just learning to play. The piece was complex, with emotion that seemed beyond the capabilities of anyone at the orphanage. He stood in the doorway of the music room, watching the small girl at the piano. Her eyes were closed, completely lost in the music she created. She hadn't noticed she had an audience. Alexander Blackwood had attended symphony performances across the world. He'd heard professional pianists who had studied their craft for decades. Yet something about this child's playing made him stand perfectly still, listening. When the piece ended, Mei-Lin opened her eyes and gasped, nearly falling off the bench when she saw the man in the expensive suit watching her. "Who taught you to play like that?" Mr. Blackwood asked, his voice neither kind nor unkind, just curious. Mei-Lin swallowed hard. "My mother started teaching me, before she died. Then I taught myself mostly." "That's impossible," he said flatly. "That piece you were playing, Mozart's Sonata in C major. It takes years of professional training to play at that level." Mei-Lin didn't know how to respond to that, so she remained silent, her hands now folded tightly in her lap. Mrs. Chen appeared behind Mr. Blackwood, slightly out of breath. "I'm so sorry for the interruption, Mr. Blackwood. Mei-Lin should be with the others. Mei-Lin, please join the rest of the children now." But Mr. Blackwood didn't move from the doorway. "How long have you been playing?" "Since I was 4, Mei-Lin answered quietly. "My mother had a keyboard at home." "And how old are you now?" 12, sir." Mr. Blackwood turned to Mrs. Chen. "Has she had any formal training here?" Mrs. Chen shook her head. "We don't have the budget for music lessons, Mr. Blackwood. The piano was donated years ago. Mei-Lin just plays it sometimes." Mr. Blackwood turned back to Mei-Lin, studying her with new interest. "Play something else," he commanded. It wasn't a request, but an order. Mei-Lin looked at Mrs. Chen, who gave a small, nervous nod. Slowly, Mei-Lin turned back to the piano. Her hands hovered over the keys for a moment. Then she began to play again, this time a piece she had composed herself, inspired by her fading memories of life before the orphanage. The staff and other children had gathered in the hallway now, watching as the usually quiet Mei-Lin played for the intimidating visitor. The music filled the small room, somehow conveying both sorrow and hope in each note. When she finished, the room remained silent. Mr. Blackwood's face had changed, though Mei-Lin couldn't read his expression. "Interesting," he said finally, then turning to his assistant, "Make a note. I want to discuss this child's situation further." As he walked away, followed by his entourage, whispers erupted among the children and staff. Mei-Lin remained seated at the piano, a mixture of confusion and dread filling her chest. "What just happened?" she asked Ms. Zhao, who had pushed through the crowd to reach her. Ms. Zhao squeezed her shoulder. "I think, my dear, you just caught the attention of one of the most powerful men in the city. Whether this was good or bad, neither of them could say." For the rest of the day, Mei-Lin couldn't escape the whispers. They followed her down hallways, into the dining room, even into the small bedroom she shared with 3 other girls. Did you hear? Mr. Blackwood asked about her specifically. I heard his assistant writing something down. Maybe he'll give her that special scholarship. Ivy, the oldest girl in their room, sat on Maylin's bed that evening. So what was it like? Having the Ice King actually talk to you? That's what the children called Alexander Blackwood behind the adults' backs. The Ice King. Cold, distant, powerful. He didn't say much, Maylene replied, folding her second-best shirt and placing it in the small drawer that held all her belongings. Just asked me to play. Well, everyone's saying he's coming back tomorrow, Ivy said, leaning closer. And not with his usual people. He's bringing someone else. A music person. Maylin's hand stilled. How do you know? Heard Miss Patel on the phone, Ivy shrugged. I was helping in the office. That night, Mayline barely slept. What if Mr. Blackwood really did offer her the scholarship? Every year, he selected one child from Oakwood for his special program. Paid education at the best schools. A path to university. A future most orphans could only dream about. But this year, the rumors said he might be looking to adopt. Mayline couldn't decide which possibility scared her more. Morning came too quickly. The staff moved with the same nervous energy as yesterday, but now their attention was focused on Mayline. Ms. Zhao helped her into her best dress, a light green one with only one small patch near the hem. Remember to speak clearly, Ms. Zhao said, brushing Mayline's straight black hair. Look at people when they talk to you, and if Mr. Blackwood asks you to play again, play my very best, Mayline finished. Ms. Zhao's hands paused. No, dear. Play what he asks you to play, exactly as he asks. Mr. Blackwood likes things his way. The morning stretched endlessly. Mayline wasn't allowed to go to the music room. We don't want you tired out before they arrive, Mrs. Chen explained. Instead, she sat in the common room with a book she couldn't focus on, waiting. At precisely 11 o'clock, the black car pulled up again. This time, Mr. Blackwood wasn't alone. Beside him was a thin woman with silver-streaked hair pulled back so tightly it looked painful. That's Ms. Winters, whispered one of the staff members to another. She runs the Symphony Academy downtown. Maylin's heart beat faster. The Symphony Academy was the most prestigious music school in the city. Children who studied there became professional musicians playing in grand concert halls around the world. Mrs. Chen greeted them at the door with the same nervous smile as yesterday. Welcome back, Mr. Blackwood. And welcome, Ms. Winters. We're so honored by your visit. Mr. Blackwood didn't waste time with pleasantries. Where's the girl? Mrs. Chen gestured to Mayline, who stood up quickly, her book tumbling to the floor. Ms. Winters looked her up and down with critical eyes. This is the prodigy you mentioned? She's rather small for 12. Size doesn't affect one's ability to reach the keys, Mr. Blackwood replied. Let's continue this in the music room. The small group made their way down the hallway. Mayline walked between the two visitors, feeling like a very small boat between two large ships. In the music room, Ms. Winters inspected the old piano with a look of distaste. This instrument is horribly out of tune. I can't possibly evaluate her properly on this. It's the best we have, Mrs. Chen said apologetically. Ms. Winters sighed and opened her large handbag, pulling out several sheets of music. We'll make do. Now then, young lady, Mr. Blackwood tells me you can play Mozart. Let's see what else you can do. She placed the sheet music on the piano stand. Mayline looked at it and felt her stomach sink. The notes crowded the page in a pattern she'd never seen before. This is Chopin's Etude in C minor, Ms. Winters said. Are you familiar with it? Mayline shook her head. No, ma'am, I see. Ms. Winters' mouth tightened. Can you read music? Again, Mayline had to shake her head. Not really. My mother showed me a little, but mostly I play by ear. Ms. Winters turned to Mr. Blackwood with an eyebrow raised. You said she played Mozart's Sonata in C major. She did. Quite well, Mr. Blackwood insisted. Without being able to read music? Impossible. Ms. Winters turned back to Mayline. Play it for me. The Mozart piece you supposedly performed yesterday. The word supposedly stung, but Mayline sat at the piano. She closed her eyes briefly, remembering. Then her fingers found the keys. The music flowed just as it had yesterday. She missed a few notes. The piano really was out of tune, but the melody remained true. When she finished, she looked up. Ms. Winters' expression had changed from skepticism to something more complicated. Play something else, she commanded. Something you've made up yourself. Maylene hesitated only a moment before beginning one of her own compositions. It was simpler than the Mozart, but it came from somewhere deeper inside her. When she played her own music, it felt like telling a story without words. When she finished, the room was silent. "Well?" Mr. Blackwood asked after a moment. Ms. Winters cleared her throat. "She has unusual talent. Raw, undisciplined, but remarkable considering the circumstances. With proper training, so you could teach her?" Mr. Blackwood interrupted. "I could, but it would take years to correct her technique. She's developed some truly atrocious habits, and the Academy only accepts students who can already read music fluently." Mr. Blackwood's face darkened. "I'm not asking if she meets your usual criteria. I'm asking if you could teach her." The tension in the room grew thicker. Ms. Winters straightened her already straight back. "With all due respect, Mr. Blackwood, even your considerable influence has limits. Our standards exist for a reason." Something dangerous flashed in Mr. Blackwood's eyes. "Then I'll find someone else." "Good luck with that." Ms. Winters gathered her sheet music. "Any reputable instructor will tell you the same thing. The girl has a gift, yes, but she's too old to begin formal training. Had she started at 4 or 5, perhaps? But 12? With no foundation in music theory? No ability to read sheet music? It would be like teaching someone to write poetry before they've learned the alphabet." Maylene's cheeks burned with shame. She stared at the piano keys, wishing she could disappear between them. Mr. Blackwood was silent for a long moment. Then he turned to Mrs. Chen. "Leave us. I want to speak to the child alone." Mrs. Chen hesitated. "Mr. Blackwood, our policy requires that a staff member be present during all interactions with the children." "Fine. One person can stay. The rest out." Ms. Winters left with a disapproving sniff. Mrs. Chen motioned for Ms. Zhao to remain while she herself stepped out. Once the door closed, Mr. Blackwood pulled a chair directly in front of the piano bench where Maylene sat. He studied her face with those sharp eyes that seemed to see everything. "Do you know who I am?" he asked. Maylene nodded. "You're Mr. Blackwood. You own big companies and give a scholarship to one child every year." "Alexander Blackwood," he corrected. "CEO of Blackwood Enterprises. I own 7 companies across 3 continents. My annual income exceeds the combined budget of every orphanage in this city for the next century." He paused. "And I don't give scholarships out of charity." Ms. Zhao made a small sound of protest, but Mr. Blackwood silenced her with a glance. "I invest in potential," he continued, focusing on Maylene again. "Every year I select one child who shows exceptional intelligence or skill. I provide education, mentoring opportunities. In return, when they succeed, they come work for me. It's a business arrangement, not charity." Maylene didn't know what to say to that, so she remained silent. "But you," Mr. Blackwood leaned forward, "you present a problem. Ms. Winters is right, no traditional music school will accept you. You've learned everything wrong. And yet, somehow you play better than students with years of formal training." He stood abruptly and paced the small room. "I don't like puzzles I can't solve," he said, almost to himself. Then he stopped and turned to face Maylene again. His expression shifted into something harder, more challenging. "I'll make you a deal, little girl," he said, his voice carrying a hint of mockery. "Play something right now, something that truly impresses me, and I'll adopt you myself." Ms. Zhao gasped. "Mr. Blackwood, you can't possibly—" "Can't I?" He cut her off. "I have more than enough resources to raise a child. And clearly this one needs specialized attention that no institution can provide." He turned back to Maylene, a cold smile playing at his lips. "Well, do we have a deal? Show me something extraordinary, and you'll leave this place today. Fail, and you stay here until you age out of the system." Maylene looked from Mr. Blackwood to Ms. Zhao, whose face showed clear alarm. "You don't have to do this, Maylene," Ms. Zhao said softly. "He's not being serious." "Oh, but I am," Mr. Blackwood insisted. "Dead serious. One chance right now. Impress me, truly impress me, or remain here indefinitely." The challenge hung in the air between them. Maylene looked at the piano, then back at the man with the cruel smile. She had nothing to lose. Slowly, she turned back to the piano and placed her hands on the keys. The room felt suddenly too small, the air too thin. Maylene sat at the piano, aware of every eye on her. Mr. Blackwood stood tall and imposing, his challenge still echoing in her ears. Ms. Zhao's worried face watched from the corner. And somewhere outside, the other children and staff were surely pressing their ears to the door, straining to hear what was happening. What should she play? Mozart again? No, he'd already heard that. One of her own simple compositions? Not impressive enough. Maylin's mind raced through every piece she knew, every melody she'd learned by heart or created herself. None of them felt right for this moment. Then, in the stillness of her panic, she remembered something her mother had once told her. When words fail, when nothing seems right, just close your eyes and let your heart speak through your fingers. Maylin took a deep breath and closed her eyes. For several seconds, her hands hovered motionless above the keys. The silence stretched so long that Mr. Blackwood shifted impatiently. Then Maylin began to play. The first notes were tentative, like raindrops before a storm. Soft, questioning. They formed no recognizable piece, no practiced melody. Instead, they seemed to search for something, reaching out into the quiet room. Gradually, the notes found their path. The melody grew stronger, building into something that hadn't existed until this very moment. Maylin was composing as she played, drawing from every emotion swirling inside her. The loss of her parents, the loneliness of the orphanage years, the fear of this moment, and beneath it all, a stubborn flicker of hope. Mr. Blackwood's eyebrows rose slightly. This wasn't what he'd expected. The music shifted again, growing more complex. Maylin's small hands stretched across the keys, finding combinations that shouldn't have worked but somehow did. She played as if the old out-of-tune piano was a grand concert instrument, coaxing sounds from it that it had never made before. There was a story in the music, a journey from darkness toward light. Anyone listening could hear it, even if they couldn't name it. The melody spoke of struggle and perseverance, of small victories and crushing setbacks, of a child forced to grow up too quickly but who still found beauty in the world. Ms. Zhao pressed a hand to her mouth, tears welling in her eyes. In all the years Maylin had played at the orphanage, she'd never heard anything like this. The piece reached a passage so technically difficult that even Mr. Blackwood, who had attended countless symphony performances, couldn't believe what he was hearing from a child with no formal training. Maylin's fingers flew across the keys with impossible precision, building to a crescendo that filled every corner of the small room. Then, just when it seemed the music couldn't grow any more intense, it changed again. The storm calmed. The final section was simpler but somehow more powerful. A melody so pure and direct it seemed to bypass the ears and speak directly to the heart. When Maylin played the final note, the sound lingered in the air like a question waiting for an answer. She opened her eyes, tears streaming down her face. She hadn't realized she'd been crying. The emotion of the music had carried her away completely. The room remained absolutely silent. Ms. Zhao stood frozen, one hand still pressed to her mouth. And Mr. Blackwood's face had transformed. The cold mask of the businessman had cracked, revealing something vulnerable underneath. For just a moment he looked younger, almost like a different person entirely. He turned away abruptly, moving to the window where no one could see his expression. "What was that piece called?" he asked, his voice rough. Maylin wiped her cheeks with the back of her hand. "It doesn't have a name. I just made it up just now." "You created that just now?" She nodded, then realizing he couldn't see her with his back turned, said quietly, "Yes." Mr. Blackwood remained facing the window for what felt like a very long time. When he finally turned around, his businessman's mask was firmly back in place, though something in his eyes remained different. "Ms. Zhao," he said, his voice controlled once more, "please inform Mrs. Chen that I'll need to see the adoption paperwork." Ms. Zhao's eyes widened. You mean it? You're actually going to adopt Maylin?" "I said I would if she impressed me. I'm a man of my word." He straightened his already perfect tie. "I'll have my lawyers expedite the process. We should be able to complete everything within a week." Maylin sat frozen on the piano bench. This was really happening. After 3 years at Oakwood, she was leaving. Not with a kind, warm family like she'd sometimes dreamed about, but with this stern, cold man who saw her as, what, an investment? A curiosity? "What about my things?" she asked in a small voice. "Make a list of what you want to bring. Anything else you need can be purchased," Mr. Blackwood replied, already pulling out his phone and typing rapidly. Ms. Zhao knelt beside Maylin. "Are you okay with this, dear? It's quite sudden. Before Mei Lin could answer, Mr. Blackwood looked up from his phone. I need to make some calls. I'll return tomorrow to begin the formal process. The girl should be ready to leave by the end of the week. With that, he strode from the room, already speaking into his phone about arrangements and paperwork. The moment he left, the hallway erupted with whispers and footsteps as the eavesdroppers scattered. Ms. Zhao put an arm around Mei Lin's shoulders. You don't have to go if you don't want to, she said softly. We can find a reason, but they both knew that wasn't true. No one at Oakwood had the power to refuse Alexander Blackwood anything he wanted. And now, for reasons Mei Lin didn't fully understand, he wanted her. News of the impending adoption spread through the orphanage like wildfire. By dinner time, everyone knew. Some children looked at Mei Lin with envy, others with concern. The staff spoke in hushed voices that fell silent whenever Mei Lin came near. That night, Mei Lin couldn't sleep. She lay awake in her bed, listening to the familiar sounds of the other girls breathing. Soon she would sleep in a different room, maybe even a different part of the city. Mr. Blackwood was rich. She might have her own bedroom for the first time in her life. But would she be happy? The next morning, Mrs. Chen called Mei Lin to her office. She seemed nervous, shuffling papers and adjusting her glasses repeatedly. Mei Lin, dear, I need to explain something to you. She gestured to a chair. Mr. Blackwood is, well, he's not like our usual adoptive parents. He's never adopted before, and his lifestyle is very demanding. You mean he's busy? Mrs. Chen nodded. Very busy. He travels often. His home is probably very different from anything you're used to. And he may have expectations for you that seem strange. Because of my piano playing? Yes, Mrs. Chen leaned forward. Mei Lin, are you sure about this? We could tell him you've changed your mind. There might be other families. But they both knew those other families hadn't appeared in 3 years and might never come. Mei Lin was 12. Most people wanted younger children. This might be her only chance to leave Oakwood before she aged out of the system. I want to go, Mei Lin said, with more confidence than she felt. I want to learn more about music. And maybe, she hesitated, maybe he's nicer than he seems. Mrs. Chen didn't look convinced, but she nodded. Well, Mr. Blackwood will be here soon with his lawyer to begin the paperwork. I've arranged for you to speak with our social worker first, to help prepare you. The meeting with the social worker was a blur of advice and warnings. Don't be afraid to call us if you need anything, she kept saying. You have rights even with someone as powerful as Mr. Blackwood. By the time Mr. Blackwood arrived with his lawyer, a sharp-eyed woman with a briefcase that probably cost more than everything in the orphanage, Mei Lin felt like she was watching everything happen to someone else, as if she were floating somewhere near the ceiling, observing. The adults talked over her head about legal requirements, transition periods, and educational arrangements. Mr. Blackwood mentioned private tutors, a special piano being delivered to his home, and plans to have Mei Lin evaluated by the best music consultants in the country. Not once did he ask what Mei Lin thought about any of it. As the meeting concluded, Mrs. Chen said, Perhaps Mei Lin would like to see her new home before the final paperwork is completed. To help with the transition? Mr. Blackwood seemed surprised by the suggestion, as if the idea that Mei Lin might have feelings about any of this hadn't occurred to him. I suppose that could be arranged, he said after a moment. I can send a car tomorrow. Actually, Mrs. Chen pressed gently, it might be better if you showed her yourself. Children need to feel connected to their new guardians. Mr. Blackwood checked his watch with a frown, but eventually nodded. Fine, tomorrow afternoon, 2 o'clock. I'll bring her back before dinner. As he and his lawyer left, Mei Lin finally found her voice. What if he doesn't like me once he gets to know me? Mrs. Chen had no answer for that. That night, Mei Lin returned to the music room one last time. She played softly, saying goodbye to the old piano that had been her friend for 3 years. Tomorrow everything would change. For better or worse, she was leaving Oakwood behind. What waited for her in Alexander Blackwood's world she couldn't begin to imagine. Precisely at 2 o'clock the next day, a sleek black car pulled up outside Oakwood Children's Home. This time, Mr. Blackwood drove himself. No driver, no assistants, no photographers. Mei Lin waited on the front steps with a small backpack containing the few personal items she wanted to show him from her room. Ms. Zhao stood beside her, fussing with the collar of Mei Lin's jacket. Remember what we talked about. If anything makes you uncomfortable, you can call us any time. Maylin nodded, watching as Mr. Blackwood stepped out of the car. He looked different today. Still in expensive clothes, but more casual. Dark jeans instead of suit pants. A light gray sweater instead of a jacket and tie. "Ready?" he asked, approaching the steps. Maylin glanced up at Ms. Zhao, who gave her an encouraging nod, then back at Mr. Blackwood. "Yes, sir." The drive was silent at first. Maylin had never been in such a nice car before. Smooth leather seats, buttons and screens everywhere, that new car smell. She kept her hands folded in her lap, afraid to touch anything. "You can turn on the radio if you want," Mr. Blackwood said after several minutes of silence. "I don't know how," Maylin admitted. He reached over and pressed a button. Classical music filled the car, a piano concerto Maylin recognized but couldn't name. "Do you like this?" he asked. "Yes." "It's beautiful." Another stretch of silence followed. Mr. Blackwood drove through parts of the city Maylin had never seen before. Tall glass buildings reached toward the sky. People in business clothes hurried along the sidewalks, and shops displayed items so expensive they didn't even show prices in the windows. Finally, they turned onto a tree-lined street where the houses, no, mansions, sat far back from the road behind manicured lawns and decorative gates. "Is this where you live?" Maylin asked, unable to hide her amazement. "Yes." Mr. Blackwood pressed a button on his dashboard and an ornate iron gate slowly swung open. They drove up a curved driveway to a large stone house with tall windows and a massive front door. "It's so big," Maylin whispered. "Too big, probably," Mr. Blackwood replied, surprising her. "I bought it after my company went public. It made sense at the time." He parked in front of the house and turned off the engine. For a moment he just sat there, hands still on the wheel. "I should warn you," he said finally. "I don't spend much time here. I travel frequently for business. The house is mostly maintained by staff." "Staff?" "Housekeeper, cook, groundskeeper. They don't live here, but they come daily." He turned to look at her directly. "You'll rarely be alone, but you might not see me for days at a time. Is that going to be a problem?" Maylin wasn't sure what the right answer was. "I don't know," she said honestly. Something that might have been respect flickered in Mr. Blackwood's eyes. "Fair enough. Let's go inside." The inside of the house was even more impressive than the outside. High ceilings, marble floors, art on the walls that looked like it belonged in a museum. Maylin followed Mr. Blackwood from room to room as he gave a brief tour. There was a formal dining room with a table that could seat 20 people, a living room with furniture that looked like no one had ever sat on it, and a kitchen bigger than the entire first floor of Oakwood. "The cook leaves meals in the refrigerator when I'm not home for dinner," Mr. Blackwood explained. "You can tell her your preferences. She's very accommodating." Upstairs, he showed her 3 empty guest rooms. "You can choose whichever you prefer. They'll be redecorated for you, of course." Maylin peeked into each one. They were all larger than the room she'd shared with 3 other girls at Oakwood. The smallest had a window seat overlooking the backyard garden. "This one," she said quietly. "You're sure?" "It's the smallest," she nodded. "I like the window." "Very well," he made a note on his phone. "Now for the main event." He led her down the hallway to a set of double doors. When he pushed them open, Maylin gasped. The room was large and bright, with windows along one wall letting in natural light. In the center sat a grand piano, the biggest, most beautiful instrument Maylin had ever seen. Its polished black surface gleamed in the sunlight. "I had it delivered yesterday," Mr. Blackwood said. "It's a Steinway Model D, the same type used in concert halls. Cost more than most people's houses, but if you're going to learn properly, you should have the best." Maylin stood frozen in the doorway, afraid to even enter the room. "It's for me? To practice on?" "That's the idea." Mr. Blackwood gestured for her to come in. "Go ahead. Try it." Hesitantly, Maylin approached the piano. The bench was a bit too high for her, but when she sat and placed her hands on the keys, she immediately felt the difference. The keys responded to the lightest touch, the sound rich and perfect. She played a simple scale, then a chord. The notes filled the room like sunshine. "What do you think?" Mr. Blackwood asked. Maylin looked up at him, her eyes shining. "It's magic." For the first time since she'd met him, Mr. Blackwood's face softened into what might almost have been a smile. "I thought you might feel that way." He let her play for a while, watching from across the room as she explored the instrument, discovering what it could do. Maylin quickly forgot he was there. lost in the joy of playing a truly magnificent piano after years of practicing on the old, out-of-tune upright at Oakwood. Eventually, Mr. Blackwood cleared his throat. "There's more to see." Reluctantly, Maylin stopped playing and followed him out. The rest of the tour included a home gym, a small movie theater, and an outdoor swimming pool. It was overwhelming, like visiting a hotel rather than a home. "Do you live here all alone?" Maylin asked as they returned to the main floor. Mr. Blackwood paused. "Yes, don't you get lonely?" The question seemed to catch him off guard. "I'm very busy," he said after a moment. "I don't have time to be lonely." They ended up in a wood-paneled study. While Mr. Blackwood checked emails on his computer, Maylin wandered around the room looking at the books on the shelves. Most seemed to be about business or economics, but one shelf held several books about music. She pulled one out, The Lives of Great Composers, and began to flip through it. "You can borrow any books you like," Mr. Blackwood said without looking up from his screen. "I've arranged for a tutor to start next week. Until then, you should feel free to explore the house and grounds. There's a security system so you can't accidentally wander off the property." "Thank you," Maylin said, though it felt strange to be thanking someone for essentially telling her she was trapped, albeit in a very luxurious cage. On the drive back to Oakwood, Maylin finally gathered the courage to ask the question that had been bothering her since yesterday. "Why me? Why did you decide to adopt me?" Mr. Blackwood kept his eyes on the road. "Your talent is exceptional. It shouldn't be wasted. But you could have just given me the scholarship like the other kids from before. You didn't have to adopt me." His hands tightened slightly on the steering wheel. "The usual arrangements wouldn't work in your case. You need specialized training, constant access to quality instruments, exposure to the right people. It's more efficient this way." Maylin looked out the window, watching the fancy part of the city give way to more familiar neighborhoods. "So it's just about my piano playing?" There was a long pause before Mr. Blackwood answered. "Isn't that enough?" Maylin didn't respond. She wasn't sure what answer she had been hoping for. Back at Oakwood, Mrs. Chen was waiting with more paperwork. Mr. Blackwood went straight to her office while Ms. Zhao pulled Maylin aside. "How was it?" "His house, I mean." "Big," Maylin said. "And he has the most beautiful piano I've ever seen." "And him? How was he with you?" Maylin thought about it. "Not mean. Not exactly nice either. Just businesslike. Like I'm a project he's working on." Ms. Zhao's forehead creased with worry. "Oh, Maylin." "But the piano," Maylin added quickly. "You should have seen it. When I played it, it felt right. Like that's where I'm supposed to be." That night, the other girls in Maylin's room bombarded her with questions. Was his house really made of gold? Did he have servants? Was there a swimming pool? Maylin answered as best she could, but found herself leaving out certain details. How empty the big house had felt despite its grandeur. How Mr. Blackwood had watched her with calculating eyes when she played. How she'd caught a glimpse of a photo on his desk of a younger Mr. Blackwood standing next to an older woman at a piano. The next few days passed in a whirlwind of preparation. Social workers came and went. Maylin packed her few belongings. The other children alternated between treating her like a celebrity and avoiding her completely. Through it all, Maylin kept returning to the music room to play the old upright piano. It felt like saying goodbye to an old friend. The day before she was set to leave Oakwood forever, Mr. Blackwood called. Mrs. Chen spoke with him briefly, then came to find Maylin in the music room. "There's been a change of plans," she said, her expression unreadable. "Mr. Blackwood has been called away on urgent business. His assistant will come to collect you tomorrow instead." "Oh," Maylin said, her fingers stilling on the keys. "When will he be back?" "He didn't say. Just that you should get settled in and start your lessons with the tutor as planned." Mrs. Chen hesitated. "Maylin, are you sure about this?" "It's not too late to change your mind." But Maylin thought about the grand piano in the sunny room, about the magic she'd felt when playing it, about the possibilities that Mr. Blackwood's world offered that Oakwood never could. "I'm sure," she said. She turned back to the old piano and began to play, one last time, the melody she'd created when Mr. Blackwood had challenged her. The music filled the small room, speaking of endings and beginnings, of fear and hope, of a journey just starting to unfold. Moving day arrived with gray skies and a light drizzle that matched Maylin's mixed emotions. Standing in the front hall of Oakwood Children's Home with her small suitcase and backpack, she hugged Ms. Zhao for the third time. "You have the phone number, right?" Ms. Zhao asked, wiping away tears. "Call any time." "I mean it," Mei Lin nodded, her throat too tight to speak. All around her, the orphanage staff and some of the children had gathered to say goodbye. Even Mrs. Chen's eyes looked suspiciously damp behind her glasses. A sleek car pulled up outside, not Mr. Blackwood's personal vehicle, but a larger town car with a driver. A woman in a sharp business suit stepped out holding an umbrella. "That's Ms. Rivera," Mrs. Chen explained, "Mr. Blackwood's personal assistant. She's arranged everything for your move." Mei Lin recognized her from Mr. Blackwood's first visit to Oakwood. She had the same brisk efficiency, typing notes on her tablet as she entered the building. "Good morning," Ms. Rivera said, checking her watch. "We should get moving. There's quite a schedule today." One by one, the staff and children gave Mei Lin final hugs. Ivy, her roommate, pressed a small handmade bracelet into her palm. "Don't forget us when you're famous," she whispered. The driver loaded Mei Lin's meager belongings into the trunk. With a final wave, she climbed into the back seat of the car, watching Oakwood, her home for 3 years, fade into the distance as they drove away. "Mr. Blackwood sends his apologies for not being here," Ms. Rivera said, not looking up from her tablet. "He was called to Tokyo unexpectedly. He should return in approximately 2 weeks." "2 weeks?" Mei Lin echoed. "Yes. In the meantime, everything has been arranged. Mrs. Lopez, the housekeeper, will be there daily. Your tutor, Dr. Chen, no relation to your orphanage director, will begin tomorrow. And Mr. Blackwood has arranged for a special visitor this afternoon." "Who?" Mei Lin asked. Ms. Rivera finally looked up. "You'll see." When they arrived at Mr. Blackwood's mansion, Mrs. Lopez was waiting at the door. Unlike Ms. Rivera's crisp formality, the housekeeper had a warm smile and immediately made Mei Lin feel welcome. "Let me show you to your room, little one," she said in accented English. "I've prepared it specially." The small bedroom Mei Lin had chosen had been transformed. The walls were now a soft blue, the furniture simple but elegant. A bookshelf held not only books about music, but also novels and stories for someone her age. On the window seat lay colorful cushions, and the view of the garden seemed even prettier than before. "Mr. Blackwood hired designers," Mrs. Lopez explained, "but he changed many of their ideas, said it should be comfortable, not fancy. A place for a child, not a display room." Mei Lin ran her hand along the soft bedspread. "He picked these things?" "Some. He was very specific about the bookshelf." Mrs. Lopez smiled. "Now come, you should eat something before your visitor arrives." After a light lunch in the enormous kitchen, Mei Lin wandered to the piano room. The grand Steinway waited, gleaming in the afternoon light. She sat at the bench and began to play, losing herself in the music until Mrs. Lopez appeared at the door. "Your visitor has arrived," she announced. Mei Lin followed her to the main entrance, where an elderly woman with silver hair was removing her coat. When she turned, Mei Lin recognized her immediately. "Ms. Winters?" The stern music teacher from the Symphony Academy looked different outside the orphanage, less intimidating somehow, though her posture was still perfectly straight. "Hello, Mei Lin," she said. "I believe we got off on the wrong foot at our last meeting." Mei Lin wasn't sure how to respond to that, so she just nodded politely. "Mr. Blackwood can be quite persuasive when he wants something," Ms. Winters continued, a hint of amusement in her voice. "He's convinced me to reconsider my position on your potential." "I don't understand." Ms. Winters gestured toward the piano room. "Shall we?" Once seated near the piano, Ms. Winters explained. "After our meeting at Oakwood, Mr. Blackwood came to see me at the academy. We had what you might call a heated discussion about traditional training versus natural talent." She paused, studying Mei Lin's face. "He made some valid points, and he made me an offer I couldn't refuse. Funding for 10 full scholarships at the academy in exchange for my personal attention to your musical education." Mei Lin's eyes widened. "You're going to be my teacher?" 3 times a week to start, Ms. Winters confirmed. "We'll begin with the basics. Proper posture, finger positioning, music theory, reading sheet music. It won't be easy. You have habits to unlearn. I thought you said I was too old to start properly." Ms. Winters' expression softened slightly. "Perhaps I was hasty in that assessment. Shall we begin today with an informal lesson? I'd like to see what we're working with." What followed was 2 hours of the most demanding musical instruction Mei Lin had ever experienced. Ms. Winters was exacting, pointing out every flaw in her technique, making her repeat the same simple exercises over and over. But unlike their first meeting, there was no mockery in her criticism, only a determination to shape Mei Lin's raw talent into disciplined skill. By the end of the lesson, Mei Lin's fingers ached and her head spun with new terms and concepts. "You did well for a first lesson," Ms. Winters said, gathering her things. "Practice those exercises daily. I'll return on Wednesday." After she left, Mei Lin sat at the piano, trying to process everything that had happened. Just a week ago, she'd been an orphan with no prospects. Now she was living in a mansion, being taught by the city's most prestigious music teacher. But Mr. Blackwood himself was nowhere to be seen. Days turned into weeks. Mei Lin fell into a routine. Mornings with her academic tutor, Dr. Chen, afternoons with Ms. Winters, evenings practicing or exploring the vast collection of books and music recordings in Mr. Blackwood's home. Mrs. Lopez became a comforting presence, always ready with a snack or a kind word. Ms. Rivera checked in every few days, making sure everything ran smoothly. But of Mr. Blackwood, there was no sign. His 2-week trip extended to 3, then 4. "Business complications," Ms. Rivera explained during one of her visits. "Very common in his position." Mei Lin tried to focus on her lessons, but questions kept nagging at her. Why had Mr. Blackwood gone to such lengths to adopt her if he wasn't going to be around? Was she just another investment to him? Like a painting or a rare book? Something to be acquired and displayed but not actually engaged with? One night, unable to sleep, Mei Lin wandered downstairs to the piano room. Playing always helped clear her mind. As she approached, she noticed a light already on inside. She pushed the door open slowly and froze. Mr. Blackwood sat at the piano, not playing, just staring at the keys. He looked different, tired, less perfectly put together, his usual sharp edges softened by exhaustion. On the piano sat a framed photograph Mei Lin hadn't seen before, a younger Mr. Blackwood beside a woman at a piano. He looked up, startled by her presence. "Mei Lin, you should be asleep." "I couldn't," she said simply. "I didn't know you were back. I arrived an hour ago." He gestured to the room around them. "How are you finding everything?" "Ms. Rivera says your lessons are going well." Mei Lin nodded. "Ms. Winters says I'm making good progress." An awkward silence fell between them. Mei Lin gathered her courage and pointed to the photograph. "Who is she?" Mr. Blackwood's face changed, something vulnerable flickering across it. "My mother. She played piano too. She was a concert pianist, quite renowned in her time." He touched the frame gently. "Before she married my father." Mei Lin moved closer. "What happened?" "My father happened." A bitter edge crept into his voice. He didn't approve of her wasting time with music once they were married. Thought it frivolous. Eventually she stopped playing altogether. "That's sad," Mei Lin said softly. "Yes." Mr. Blackwood seemed to remember himself and straightened. "Well, it was a different time. Is that why you adopted me?" "Because of her?" The question hung in the air between them. Mr. Blackwood didn't answer immediately, his eyes moving from the photograph to Mei Lin's face. "The first time I heard you play," he finally said, "it reminded me of her. Not the notes themselves, but the feeling behind them. She played from the heart, not just from training." He stood up, moving away from the piano. "I should let you practice. I know you have a routine." "You don't have to go," Mei Lin said quickly. "I could play something for you." Mr. Blackwood hesitated, then slowly sat in one of the chairs nearby. "All right." Mei Lin took her place at the piano. Instead of showing off her new technical skills, she began to play the piece she'd created during his challenge at Oakwood, but changed now, developed through weeks of proper training. The melody remained the same, but the execution had new depth and control. As she played, she glanced over at Mr. Blackwood. He sat perfectly still, eyes closed, listening intently. When she finished, the silence felt different than before, not awkward, but contemplative. "Your technique has improved," he said finally. "Ms. Winters is a good teacher." Mei Lin paused. "Thank you for